on Dusty Rhodes and his family. You don't know what hard times are, Daddy. Hard times are when the textile workers around this country are out of work and got 4 or 5 kids and can't pay their wages, can't buy their food. Hard times are when the auto workers are out of work and they tell them go home. And hard times are when a man has worked at a job 30 years. 30 years. They give him a watch, kick him in the butt, and say, hey, a computer took your place, Daddy. That's hard time. That's hard time.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here in Nashville, Tennessee, pal, I'm the man.
But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
If you smell what the rock.
I am the game, JR.
Rest in peace.
All right, had a little bit of fun making that one, but thank you guys so much for joining us on a special day for a special edition of the Hot Tag. And I am Jeff Watson. I am joined by the one and only Brandi Smith. Brandi, how are you this evening?
I'm good, Jeff. I'm good. I hope everybody in the community is doing well. I heard that a community member has a birthday today, so happy
That is
birthday.
right. That is right. And I'm looking to see if they're in the chat. I don't see them yet. So I will keep an eye on the chat so we can make this thing really cool and special for them. But yeah, we are live with all of you. And if you didn't get a notification, I apologize. I think Joe put that out on Twitter a little bit earlier, but I know not everyone can kind of pay attention to Twitter all the time, so I apologize for that. But we will get going with who we have here today. Let's see. I want to say hello to some folks in the chat. We've got James Chadwick, Mike Lister, Sonny Wolf, Creed, Mario from Periscope. Nails is in here. So hello, everyone. Still waiting on a couple people to join us, but this week we are discussing, we've got Mr. Smooth. Happy birthday to him, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Because he's saying happy birthday to me. We also have another birthday shout out as well, KJ Carter.
Happy birthday, KJ.
So yes, we got a couple birthdays. But yeah, no, we've got Mr. Smooth, Big Boy Dally, Sean Flagstaff. I've got to make sure I differentiate our Sean's because we've got like 7,000. And Creed are all here joining us tonight. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Really, really excited to bring this episode to you guys. And Brandi, I guess I'm going to just turn it over to you. And if you could just tell our listeners here who we're discussing today.
I'm so excited about tonight's show, baby. Let's get it started, baby. We're talking about the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, baby.
That is right. We are talking about the Mouth of the South himself, Jimmy Hart. And I got a little creative with the graphics here. And I've got like a 80s retro theme with a studio desk, an old school TV with dials, and I've got some purple and some 80s type colors going on. So yeah, I decided, let's change things up a little bit and do this thing right. So,
That is so
Brand,
cool.
yeah. So Brandy, um, give us a little bit of a background on the one and only Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart.
First of all, I'm going to say that for a man who's on the downside to 80, he looks pretty much the same as he did in 1985. Um, Jimmy Hart was born in 1943, if you can believe it. And he is still going strong, baby. And
Yes, he is.
if you don't know about Jimmy Hart, he says baby every other word. One of his biggest claims to fame is that in the 1960s, he and some friends, they began a band, and they had a huge hit called Keep On Dancing, and it was higher on the charts than the Beatles at the time.
Wow.
They were, yeah, if you could, Jimmy Hart, yeah. And they were in a movie as themselves. Eventually, they broke up, and Jimmy Hart got into wrestling because of Jerry the King Lawler. They had attended the same high school. Jimmy Hart was born in Mississippi, but ended up spending a good bit of his time in Memphis. And so the King got him into wrestling. He was a manager for the King, and then they broke up, and Jimmy started, wrestling and managing others. Yes, Jimmy Hart wrestled. I did not know that. I was shocked, quite frankly. I was shocked. I can't imagine Jimmy getting the 1, 2, 3 on anybody, but I'd love to see it. This is huge. I know a lot of the younger people in our chat won't have heard about this, but if you go back and watch, I believe it's 1998, 1999, a movie called Man in the Moon with Jim Carrey. It's about a comedian from back then named Andy Kaufman. And Andy Kaufman loved wrestling. And he decided that he wanted to start this storyline with Jerry Lawler. And Jimmy Hart was the manager of Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman was famous for Taxi. He was famous for being just this unusual character who lived his gimmick pretty much. And so he decided that he would go down to Memphis and teach those rednecks, how you should behave. And Jimmy Hart was his manager. So if you guys aren't familiar with that storyline, it was huge for the time. It was huge for Jerry the King Lawler. It was huge for Andy Kaufman, and also for the Mouth of the South, Mr. Jimmy Hart. Some of those promos back then, some of those matches were just absolutely fabulous. And that's documented in the movie I referenced earlier. Jimmy Hart would manage while in Memphis and in AWA. So many people that he would end up having, relations with in the future. Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Like I mentioned, he managed Jerry the King Lawler. He managed, oh gosh, just so many people.
I know I have a
Yeah.
picture here where he was with Brett and
Yep.
Jim the Anvil,
Yep.
the Hart Foundation. So
And he was also AWA Southern champion before he ends up in the WWE. Jimmy Hart was a wrestling champion.
wow.
So he stays in Memphis in the AWA for about 7 years. Then he gets the opportunity to move to up north, as they call it, with the WWF at the time. And his real first event was WrestleMania 1. Now, I can imagine going into the WWF and getting started on some house shows, but nope. Jimmy got started WrestleMania 1. So he is managing Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and then this 1985, Bret Hart comes in. He starts to manage them. They call themselves the Hart Foundation, and for a while it was thought that they couldn't use that name because there was another organization called the same thing. So Jimmy came up with the idea, well, we'll just change the spelling, and so the Hart Foundation came into existence. Jimmy Hart won a battle royal in Madison Square Garden around this time. Jimmy Hart won a battle royal. Let me just say that twice to get it through everybody's head. Yeah, and won a $50,000 prize at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
So I definitely want to go back and look up some of the stuff where he's actually in the ring. He became this iconic manager fairly quickly. No matter who he was managing, he would match his outfits to theirs. He had the megaphone where he would kind of yell out to his wrestlers, this is what you should do, or he would use it to heckle the opponents. He famously used the megaphone to get on Gorilla Monsoon's nerves. But it's a huge testament to his character that he had something different for every team, for every person. He managed the Honky Tonk Man, so he would have a special outfit for them. He would have a special outfit for the Hart Foundation. Specifically, I remember this jacket he had with hearts all over it. And so he's managing the Honky Tonk Man at a point where, he's Intercontinental Champion, and he's, having these amazing feuds with Randy Savage, and Jimmy Hart eventually will go on to manage the Nasty Boys. And you go back and look at some of these promos from this period of time where, Gene Okerlund's got the mic and he's talking to these guys, and Jimmy, is kind of the mouthpiece for them. And they're absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. And in this time, you also have other managers, like we talked about last week. We talked about Sherry Martel. You have Bobby the Brain Heenan in this era. You have Mr. Fuji. So it's really a great time to not only have a valet by your side, but to have somebody in your corner that can be a mouthpiece for you and that can hopefully interfere in your matches. And so Jimmy was able to do that. He was able to take bumps.
Yeah, he was able to do all of that, and I just keep thinking about him being involved in all the different promos, and
I know,
hearing that voice. It's such a distinct voice.
yes.
But here's another thing that I wanted to make sure that people understand. Could you talk a little bit about I know you talked a little bit about his music career, but how he used that in the world of professional wrestling?
Jimmy Hart was not just a manager. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was a musical genius. And so, there's a lot of theme songs people think came from Jim Johnston. Well, no, they came from Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart did the Honky Tonk Man's theme song. He did the Hart Foundation's music. He's most famously, I believe, responsible for Shawn Michaels' Sexy Boy. And Jimmy did sing it originally. He did the Nasty Boys theme song. He worked on Hulk's music. And also, while I mentioned Hulk, behind the scenes, he's involved with Hulk in real life, okay? He's Hulk's real life manager outside of wrestling. And so that's why, you see Hulk go somewhere, Jimmy's going to follow. He wasn't Hulk's manager until later on, till closer to their end with WWE, and it was when Jimmy Hart had turned face. He managed Brutus the Barber Beefcake. He did Brutus's music, so, and had influence on so many other people's music as well. Sitting around in production meetings, throwing this idea, see if it sticks to the wall. So he's he's incredible. And I don't think I've ever seen the guy in a bad mood on any wrestling show that I've seen, on any promo that I've seen. I absolutely love Jimmy Hart in Wrestling House. That came out in 2014. It's on the WWE Network. If you want to have a good time and don't know what to watch, go back and watch that, because you learn so much about some of our greats from the past. You really do. And there are people in this show that are no longer here. And just seeing Jimmy in his natural habitat is priceless. Jimmy Hart was mostly a heel manager. Like I said, he was with the Honky Tonk Man. He puts together Rhythm and Blues, who is the Honky Tonk Man, and Greg the Hammer Valentine. I don't think Valentine really wanted to be a part of that package. It didn't last very long. But Jimmy also would play Peggy Sue, Honky Tonk Man's girlfriend, every once in a while. I guess when Sherry was not available, Jimmy did it. He eventually he turns face shortly before he and Hogan leave the WWF, and he manages to protect Brutus. Brutus the Barber Beefcake needed Jimmy Hart's protection against another tag team. Let's process this for a minute. Jimmy also managed Ted DiBiase. He managed Money Inc. I don't know if you guys remember Money Inc., but Money Inc. was Ted DiBiase and our podcast's favorite father, Mike Rotunda, who is the father of Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas.
That's right.
Yeah. So
listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Mika Rotunda.
yes,
because she's awesome, and I'll shut up now before people start putting two and two together, because yes, I think she's beautiful. But I'll stop there.
I could not remember her name, so I apologize. He also he managed the Nasty Boys. He had a lot to do with their music. He also I didn't mention this earlier, and I apologize. He did music for Dusty Rhodes as well. NWO he did music for. And famously, there's a match, I believe it was between Honky Tonk Man and Brutus Beefcake, and this is when Jimmy Hart was still a heel, where Brutus cuts Jimmy's hair.
Oh, yeah.
So if you guys want to go back and look that up and watch Jimmy get his hair cut. So Hogan leaves the WWF. And as I said before, he's outside of the ring. He's Hogan's real life manager. So he goes along with Hogan, and Hogan does this show called Thunder in Paradise. To me, it's a wrestling version of Baywatch.
Yes.
And
quite literally, yes.
Yes. And Jimmy makes several appearances in that show as well. And then they move on to WCW. Jeff, is there anything you want to talk about before we move on to WCW?
So, before we go there, who are some of the people in WWE? I know you've mentioned a lot, but who, if you could give me 2 to 3 people who were like your favorite pairings with Jimmy Hart and whoever those people were for you.
Okay, the Hart Foundation. Absolutely. Because, everybody knows that Jim the Anvil did not have the greatest mic skills. The laugh was iconic, but he did not have the greatest mic skills. And we know at this point that Brett didn't really either. Brett didn't come into his own until the 90s for me. So Jimmy Hart was the perfect pairing for them. And of course, his last name was Hart, just fit right in. I really loved that. I loved how he could interfere in their matches, because you have to remember, in the beginning, they were heels. They were not baby faces. And I think a lot of people, when they think about Bret Hart especially, they think about him as a face in the 90s and him as a heel in the 90s. But as the tag team, they were definitely heels at first. as much as I don't want to say it, I agree with Eric Bischoff. The best day would be to fire Honky Tonk Man over and over again. But his pairing with Honky Tonk Man was really great.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. And Nell shouts out the natural disasters.
Nails, you're reading my mind. I was just about to mention that. John Tenta, who was Earthquake, came out of the crowd one night where Ultimate Warrior is having a push-up contest with an opponent, and Jimmy Hart brings John Tenta out, and this is a 400-pound plus man, and they're saying, okay, well, you sit on the backs of these two and see how they do with the push-up contest. And so Earthquake, who's John Tenta, he became a fixture in the WWE. He was paired with Tugboat Toot Toot, who eventually became Typhoon. And so they were the natural disasters, and Jimmy Hart managed them. And eventually, the interesting thing to me about that is they're a heel tag team, but eventually he ends up managing Hogan at the end. But the interesting tie-in to me with that is that Earthquake was huge in everybody thinking that Hogan's career had ended, because he does, I don't remember what they called it, but the kind of earthquake splash is what I think, where he kind of jumps up and looks like he's sitting on you. And he famously did that to Hogan, and they had this huge write-in campaign about, send messages to Hogan and tell him you want him to get well. And this was around the time I think he was starting Thunder in Paradise, so he needed to take some time off, and Earthquake is how they made that happen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Those are some awesome names there. And I mean, just hearing obviously Earthquake and Tugboat, I really enjoyed him with the natural disasters a lot. James Chadwick says the Hart Foundation, Nasty Boys, and natural disasters for him.
Yep.
Here's a question from Mike Lister. He asked, did Jimmy Hart manage the Twin Towers?
I'm not sure. I know he was a part of Big Boss Man's career, but I couldn't find anything about that. I wouldn't be surprised. It could have been Bobby Heenan. You know what? At that point, it may have been Slick. Because when Big Boss Man first came out, he was managed by Slick. So it could have been Slick at that point, where we have the Twin Towers. Yeah. Also, Jimmy managed the Mountie.
Oh.
If you guys don't remember the Mountie, go back and look at it. Speaking of Big Boss Man, there's this match between the Mountie and Big Boss Man, and whoever loses has to spend the night in a New York jail. So
I might remember that.
Yeah, I remember that too. So you guys go back and check that match out. The Mountie was actually one of the Rougeau brothers, and Jimmy Hart managed them as well. I am so remiss in not saying this earlier. Jimmy Hart managed the Funk Brothers during a short stint in WWF. So
that's right. And that Earthquake Splash was called the Earthquake Splash. We've had
that would make a lot of sense.
We've had Nels and James Chadwick confirm that. Nels says that she Googled and can't find him. Can't find the Twin Towers with him. So it could be that he did not. It might have been the Brain. I think it might have been Bobby the Brain Heenan.
And we'll get to him eventually, you guys.
Oh,
don't worry.
Yeah. Listen, we cannot, absolutely cannot cover managers or valets without at some point covering Bobby the Brain Heenan, because
absolutely
the man was just absolutely brilliant at everything he did, from commentary to just the psychological approach of everything when he was managing folks. So yeah, we're going to definitely get to Bobby the Brain, but yeah, today we are covering the Mouth of the South. So, Brandi, let's talk about his venture down south to the ATL and to World Championship Wrestling, or as Ted Turner called it, wrestling.
Yes, he went to WCW, baby.
WCW.
That's right. Yeah. He comes in and he's managing Hogan off the bat, which really is a good business deal because he's managing in real life. So um, he manages Hogan in his first title defense against Ric Flair, and this is where we have a really interesting tie-in from last week because if you remember, Sherry managed Ric Flair during this match. So you have two of the all-time great managers on the outside and two of the all-time greats inside the ring. And so that would bring Hogan his first world title in WCW.
Yes.
Just process that, you guys. You
know,
have Jimmy and Sherry on the outside and Ric Flair and Hogan on the inside.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Twin Towers were managed by Slick. This is from our friend James Chadwick. So thank you,
One
James.
for the ginger snap.
That's right. Go Slick. And you know what? We might actually have to. We've been talking about maybe covering Slick. We might be able to do a few of the more obscure managers that maybe weren't as big to some. I mean, I know I love Slick, but
me too.
We may do an episode where we combine some folks. We'll let you guys know. But okay, so we're at the point now where Hogan is the world heavyweight champion in WCW.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so now let's go forward in WCW and talk a little bit more about Jimmy.
He also would continue to manage the Nasty Boys in WCW when they headed south. Also, the Booty Man, Zodiac,
yes,
Beefcake,
Brutus.
Whatever you want to call him.
The repackaged guy. That's what we'll call him.
Yeah,
he got repackaged more than some bad deli meat at a grocery store.
He went through a few changes down south. Yes. I don't think he managed Honky Tonk Man in WCW, but I think Honky was only there for maybe a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was instrumental, like I said, in writing some of the music for the NWO. Although I do not believe that he was an actual member of the NWO. If he had been, that would have been funny. Can you imagine Jimmy Hart in the red and black or the black and white?
I'd love to see him alongside Eric Bischoff at that time.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Yeah, I mean just those two. I mean, yeah, that would have been that would have been so wonderful. But yeah, I mean he did. I mean he's done so much.
And the famous booking committee of WCW, Jimmy Hart was a part of from time to time.
Yeah.
He also was the manager of the Dungeon of Doom. Oh. You talked about the Dungeon when you talked about Kevin Sullivan.
Yes.
Yeah. So Kevin could have managed it himself.
Major Wolf.
But Jimmy Hart was the manager of the Dungeon of Doom. He and Hulk split apart famously when he decides he's going to turn on Hogan and manage the Giant, who we all know as the Big Show.
And James Chadwick just shouted that out. So you know what? Everybody is in everybody's mind today, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
We're psychically connected. Yeah, but I can completely understand the pairing of Jimmy Hart and the Giant because he was young to the business at this point, and he needed a mouthpiece. Yes. You know, I don't think he really got pretty good on the mic until his WWE days. So in WCW, I love the pairing of the Giant with Jimmy Hart. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you think about it, and especially if those of you who don't know as much about Paul White, aka the Big Show, about his journey into wrestling, he was honestly a really good basketball player here in South Carolina. And, after he went to college, I believe he went to Wichita State and played basketball there. After that was over, He had to find something to do, and you got a big guy like that, and you're working out in a gym, and you just happen to run into Hulk Hogan and all these other people in the gym. Guess what? Guess what, brother? They're gonna say, come down and let's take some bumps. Let's do this thing. So, I mean, that's really how he got into the business, and
Hmm.
just absolutely. I mean, some of the stories that you hear about the connections, especially for Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW, NWA, some of these things that you hear are just absolutely, I mean, just crazy. I mean, you think about the interview we did with Nikita Koloff, and he talked about his quote unquote training where he sent a picture. Well, no, he didn't even send a picture. He just showed up one day in Charlotte to see Jim Crockett. They told him to shave his head, and he learned how to wrestle by going into squash matches and then coming back out to the ring and being there with Ivan, to watch them do their thing. So I mean, you just think about some of these stories from back in the day, and then obviously someone like Jimmy Hart, who we've learned in this episode, was actually an in-ring performer. So I mean,
Yes.
you just think about some of those things.
And he would wrestle at house shows. And too, talking about the Giant, he trained at the power plant. Goldberg trained at the power plant. So you
Yep.
think about, how many of these people just get their start in the same place. It's mind-boggling. And we're talking about music. I forgot to mention this. Jimmy Hart had some say in Sting's music as well.
Yep.
So he was really a jack of all trades. He could manage, he could bump, he could be on the booking committee. He could help wrestlers with their theme music, with their look. So he, a lot like Sherry, was just a jack of all trades.
Absolutely. He absolutely was. So what, Brandy? What was your favorite WCW moment for Jimmy Hart?
Oh my goodness.
I know that's a tough question. I'll give you mine.
Okay.
One of my favorite moments was when Hulk Hogan first arrived
Mm-hmm.
in WCW, and they have the big parade, and you
Yep.
see him and Hulk, in the car riding down the street and just
That
being
happened at
mobbed.
Disney, by the
Yep,
way.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
It happened at Disney. You just see them being mobbed by all the fans as they're going, and it was a big deal. I mean, honestly, at that point in time, up to that point, I mean, yeah, you had Ric Flair in WCW, and you had Sting, and you had the Horsemen and all of them, but you never had someone that was a generational icon. I mean, I would tend to disagree with that because I think Ric Flair is that, but also I realize that I'm biased because of where I grew up. But someone that did for the business what Hulk Hogan did, and you see them, when people think that the career is over, and he makes this huge jump to WCW, and it was just an amazing jump from
Yes.
WWF at the time to WCW, and it just shifted the professional wrestling landscape.
Absolutely. I think I loved when he turned on Hogan because it was something you wouldn't expect. Knowing that they had been together at different times in the WWF and in WCW, and you think he's this essential part of Hogan as a performer, as a wrestler, and he turns on him. And I think turns are always so much fun, especially when you don't see them coming. And I think that's one of those that you didn't see coming.
Right.
And he remains loyal to WCW, completely until the end.
Yeah.
Completely until the end. He's with them until the end. He would even wrestle a couple times for WCW towards the end there. And after the unfortunate demise of WCW, Jimmy gets together with a few wrestlers, a few investors, and they start the XWF. And it was believed at the time that this would be a replacement for WCW. So he's a manager in this organization that he helped start. I believe he also wrestled for this organization. It would not last for long, however, and he makes a couple of appearances in TNA. He starts a female organization that's more comedic than wrestling, but it's pretty successful from what I understand. He goes back to the WWE with a Legends contract. He's on, Hogan's birthday special. He's on. It was, I think it was a Legends SmackDown. He was on, um, and then of course I mentioned Legends House, and then I think you really get to understand some of the things that Jimmy Hart was famous for. Behind the scenes, he was famous for being a very unusual eater. I think at some point they asked him on Legends House what he's eating, and he's like beans and taters, baby. And
Yes.
yes, and he's a partner in um, I believe it's Hogan's Beach Shop franchise. I think Hogan has two or three. He
Hmm.
also was famous for starting uh, Jimmy's Tiki Deck and Bar, which was famous for having canned beer and the WWE Network, and of course, beans and taters. So, he's done a lot to continue to make himself successful to this day, and
Yeah.
being a huge impact on the WWE today as well.
Absolutely. I mean, and that was going to be my next question. I mean, what do you think his legacy is? Not just for WCW and WWE, but just professional wrestling in general.
Well, he's a Hall of Famer with the WWE. He's a Wrestling Observer Hall of Famer, Manager of the Year several times with the Observer and WPI. I'm sorry, PWI. And I think for WCW, I think he's going to go down as one of the best managers they ever saw. Certainly, for me, WCW, Paulie Dangerously, I loved. Jimmy in WCW, I loved. Sherry in WCW, I loved. Bobby the Brain, you got more in commentary than you did as manager. But you can think of different people who came from the WWF to WCW, and you can think of some people who really bombed and some people who really did great. And I think Jimmy's one of those. And he
Yeah.
also continued with the outrageous outfits, the megaphone, the sunglasses, everything in in WCW as well.
Yeah.
But
I mean, honestly, with Jimmy Hart, it wouldn't be a Jimmy Hart appearance without some type of interesting get up that he had on. I mean, the
absolutely,
jackets, the megaphone was always decked out. I mean, you name it, he had it. Want to shout out Monica King for joining us. Hello, Monica. Jesse Callan Corner. How are you?
hello,
Um,
Jesse.
yeah, thank you guys for joining us. But yeah, this
As far as legacy, I think Jimmy's not going to be remembered as a wrestler. He's not going to be remembered as a battle royal winner. He's going to be remembered, I believe, for his musical talent, how he transcended that from a teen idol in the 1960s to the amazing work that he did in the wrestling world. I also think he's going to be remembered for the Andy Kaufman angle. I mean, people still talk about this angle to this day. It's probably the most famous angle that Jerry Lawler was involved in. Um, so you guys, if you really want to see something unusual, if you really want to see something different, if you really want to see amazing dynamics, go back and look at some of the promos and the matches from the Andy Kaufman Jerry Lawler feud and how Jimmy Hart was involved in that. There's this huge famous David Letterman spot where you have Kaufman and you have Lawler there, for the show, and I believe it was Jerry who even tried to do something with Letterman, and that was just a huge clip, a huge thing for the time.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, and we've got a Joe alert in the house. We've got Joe
Joe,
joining us.
Hey, Joe.
Joe, we're having a lot of fun talking about the one and only Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart.
Huge
Absolutely
icon of
fantastic.
the 80s.
Yeah, and Sean Flagstaff says just go watch the Letterman spot. Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. I mean, I just saw. If you guys haven't yet, there's a new Broken Skull sessions with Steve Austin and Jerry the King Lawler,
I did
and they
not know
actually
that.
yeah, and they actually cover that at length in that episode. So because he talks about how he was in Man on the Moon, the
Mm-hmm.
documentary, not the documentary, but the biopic
Mm-hmm.
about Andy Kaufman. So if you guys don't know a lot about that, just if you can go check out that Broken Skull session on the WWE Network. I absolutely loved it. I love how in depth Jerry got about the whole situation. He talked about how he talked about their match and how when he had Andy down on the mat, they had worked out the spot in the back, and Andy didn't, he didn't get the cue, and he just kept laying there, and the referee kept going back and forth, and he finally comes to Jerry, and he's like, well, he's not getting up, and Jerry said, well, he's got to, and then he goes back to Andy, and Andy says, I want an ambulance to take me out, and then Jerry says, well, I can't afford an ambulance, and the referee goes back and talks to Andy, and then the referee comes back and talks to Jerry, and the referee tells him Andy says he'll pay for it. So, so that's why that spot ended up the way that it did. But
I
yeah, it was
love
just
that.
absolutely fantastic. So yeah, if you guys don't know a lot about that era and or what we're talking about right now, go check that out because yeah, that's absolutely a phenomenal story that Jerry told about that. So yeah, it was just so funny because the way he told it, he was like, Andy says, yeah, I'll pay for it. That's
And
just
to me,
hilarious.
that's a part of Memphis wrestling where Memphis wrestling was at its highest. And Memphis wrestling is one of the last holdouts in the territory days to to just really not fall to Vince. I mean, they stayed open as long as they could, and you're talking about the Kaufman match with Lawler, and that's just, to me, that's the heyday of Memphis wrestling.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Jimmy, I think, will also be remembered for his work with Hogan. The fact that he's still a huge part of Hogan's life now. I think Eric Bischoff has even said, a few times how important Jimmy is to Hogan's life. Um, the fact that they still do business ventures together now, and the fact that Hogan, I believe, is still under a Legends contract with WWE. So is Jimmy Hart. So Jimmy Hart's he's this guy's 77 years old, guys, and he's still out there.
still going.
He may die doing something in the wrestling business, just like Vince. I think Vince is going to die in his office. And you could argue that Ric Flair will probably go out doing something wrestling related as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't necessarily believe that his contributions to the business have ended. You
No,
know,
not at
you
all.
you can talk about his legacy, but it. I'm sure that Jimmy Hart has more to give, be it giving advice to young talent, or musically, or just sharing the person that he is. I don't necessarily know that his legacy has ended. Certainly he will be remembered for Legends House. WWE, here's a hint: if you want to do another one, I'm all about it. But he got to be a part of this wrestling experiment that I think went really well. And he's still around, and so many people that were in Legends House are gone now.
That's true. That's
And
true.
I think you really get to see a part of Jimmy Hart that you wouldn't have seen otherwise, because he's one of those who does not share his personal life, much like Sherry didn't share her personal life. Um, I never knew that he had a daughter who passed away until Legends House.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
So
he's another one of those that you knew very little about other than his wrestling persona.
yeah, we got some questions coming in. You ready to take some questions?
Yes, sir. And let me mention this too. I believe that there's a Legends with JBL episode where JBL interviews Jimmy Hart, and that was
Mm-hmm.
outstanding as well.
Yes. Yes. So our first question is from Mike Lister. He asks, which modern day superstar do you think would benefit from Jimmy managing them?
Brock Lesnar.
Really?
Yes. Oh my God. When Jimmy being a heel and oh, that would crack me up all day long. Now, who else would I love? Maybe Samoa Joe. I think
Oh,
that would be interesting. Uh, I'd love to see him with some of the women too. Like, he could do something with Dana Brooke. Absolutely. Um,
you know who
uh,
I'd really love to see him with?
who?
Oscar.
Oh, good Lord. Can you imagine the language barrier between Jimmy's Southernese and Oscar's Japanese? Oh, my
That's
goodness.
exactly why I'd like to see it. That's exactly why I'd like to see it. Sean Flagstaff says, Bobby Lashley, although the Hurt business has been good, I agree. Um, I think it would be really cool to see Bobby kind of go through some different stuff. But
Jimmy
but
managing the New Day.
oh wow, just as a hype man, he doesn't need to talk for any of them.
Exactly.
But yeah, James Chadwick says Zicky Dice would be great with Jimmy. I agree with that. Zicky Dice. I mean, that whole gimmick that
Jimmy
Zicky
may
Dice
be too
has.
happy for that guy. I don't know.
No, I'd love it. I think they could both be outlandish together.
Orange Cassidy. Jimmy and
Orange.
Orange Cassidy. Can you imagine the outfits that Jimmy would come up with?
Oh my gosh. He would just wear an orange suit. Like an orange
Yes.
creamsicle suit
Yes.
with like a creamsicle megaphone. That's
Yeah. Have oranges on the megaphone. That'd be great.
yeah, yeah. Freshly squeezed written on one side of it. I can see it now.
Absolutely.
Zicky he's an upbeat guy. I think that'd be a perfect pairing with Zicky Dice. I mean, honestly, the promos and having, Jimmy like right there kind of,
Mm-hmm.
backing him up would be cool. James
Mm-hmm.
Chadwick says Cesaro maybe. Eric Buchanan says R-Truth.
You know what?
Um,
That was talked about. It was teased. There was a
yes.
SmackDown that Jimmy was on, and it was teased that he might manage R-Truth, and it never came to fruition. That would crack me up, especially if Jimmy comes out rapping with R-Truth. Or he gives R-Truth the megaphone, and R-Truth is rapping, and Jimmy's in the background, like head bopping and
Yeah.
mouthing the words or something. That would be
I'd
awesome.
love it. I'd love it. Mike Lister
So
says
cool.
Keith Lee. Nell says Private Party from AEW would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are some
Yeah.
really good ones. Yeah. So anybody else have any other questions? I know I forget which show I think it was Tuesday when we did our Impact stream. We probably spent 40 minutes just fantasy booking different things. So but yeah, if you guys have okay. Let's see.
Jimmy
Joe
Hart with
says
Bailey.
interesting. Oh yeah. Joe asked, "Who's the guy in WWE with the guitar?" Yeah, that's Elias. And Joe says, "Perfect for Jimmy Hart." Elias, that wouldn't be bad.
That would be. I like it. Good shout.
I could see Elias coming down saying, "Who wants to walk with Elias?"
Me,
And
baby,
Jimmy
me.
Hart, "Me, baby, me, me. I got you, brother. It's me. I'm right behind you, Daddy."
Absolutely.
All
Um,
day long.
I would love to see Jimmy on commentary. Can you imagine what he
Oh
could
my
do
God.
with a 2 or 3 man booth?
Oh my goodness, that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Absolutely.
Nell says, who should he hand his megaphone over to?
There is nobody. There is nobody right now. There is nobody.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of who, like, right now in the business. And I mean, Paul is in a whole nother class of his own. Paul Heyman.
I don't think the dynamic would work with Paul.
No.
No. I don't see anybody right now.
I'm getting props for my impressions. Like I don't do a whole lot of impressions. I'm limited in that.
I can't do it like Jeff, you guys. I try, but I can't do it like Jeff.
I appreciate the compliments. My voice is going to be dead later because I did that. So, Nell says Sami Zayn.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Yes, yes.
She says Sammy screeching into a megaphone would be brilliant.
The only person I can think of him maybe passing it to, if Bruce Pritchard wanted to come back out and be a part of, an event or something, I could see Bruce with the megaphone. I know a lot of you don't like Bruce. I'm a Bruce fan, but yeah, I could see Bruce with the megaphone.
Yeah. Eric Buchanan says the only person he could hand his megaphone over to is a clone of himself, but even that clone would not do as good as him.
Maybe even R-Truth. We talked about them being together earlier. Maybe even R-Truth.
I would love to see R-Truth transition into a manager and be, and be that type of mouthpiece for younger talent. I'd absolutely love to see that.
And he has such excitement about who he is and his character, and he just always seems to be in a good mood. And Jimmy's kind of the same way, so I could see that. I can see that. Absolutely. Can you imagine him with AJ Styles?
Oh, that'd be a good throwback.
Yeah.
That'd be like a really good throwback there.
Yeah.
Nell says Truth with talking to the wrong end. Yes, and that's why I would like to see it.
That's why it would be great. Absolutely.
That would be comedic gold. Sonny Wolf says Corbin with the microphone.
Oh my God.
Yes,
that monkey covering eyes emoji? That's how I feel about Jimmy Hart with Baron Corbin.
Mike Lister says Jimmy Hart managing Nia Jax and Shayna.
There you go.
That would be pretty cool.
Wait. I would love to hear Jimmy go, "We're iconic."
Oh Lord. That pairing would be hilarious.
Absolutely.
Like, what did you just say, Jimmy? What was that?
Nothing, baby. I don't know how to be from Australia. Nothing, baby.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I want to see a commercial of Jimmy advertising the WWE Network, because he has, in the past when he had his bar and tiki deck, and he'd say, "We've got the network, baby. We've got the network.
Join the WWE Network, baby.
Yeah.
Only $9.99 a month. Come on."
Yes, it would be absolutely fantastic.
Yes. Please tell me not to do that again, because my voice, I'm serious. My throat is going to kill me later. I'm not going to be able to talk this weekend.
You have no idea what laughter you're giving me right now.
Oh my gosh, my throat already hurts just from doing that a couple times.
I would like to see Jimmy have some influence on the music right now. I know a lot of it has like a rock or a rap kind of vibe. I want to see a little throwback. So I would love to have Jimmy have some influence on some of the music. I really would.
Absolutely. I mean, he's so influential and has been with all the music. I mean, we could go back and good Lord. I knew I backed myself into a corner when I did this. I'll finish that thought. Nell says we all want an Insiders episode with Jimmy Hart, and Vince chatting. Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to make you guys a deal. We won't do a whole show like this, but if Joe is up to it, when we have our 1,000 subscriber show, Joe and I may do a segment with Jimmy Hart and Vince McMahon.
Woo!
If Joe is okay with that, and I mean, we'll have to come up what we're going to talk about, but maybe we can do that when we hit 1,000 subs. So that's all the more reason for you guys to help us get some more likes and subscribes on the channel. Joe's just giving me some laughing, crying emojis.
Okay, here's one more shout from me with Jimmy. Okay, he used to love to aggravate the announcers back in the day. I want him to irritate Corey Graves. I would love for Jimmy to come out with the megaphone and go after Corey Graves. That would be fabulous to me.
Oh my goodness. We got to figure out what Jody can do on our 1,000 sub show too. We got to come up with something for you and for Jody to do on that episode. So if you do impressions, Jody, let me know. But if not, I'm gonna come up with something, and it's gonna be fun. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with that.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
Yeah. Joe apparently is all in for that segment for Vince, for Vince and Jimmy Hart. So yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. Oh, she says, how about I do Abby's in my British accent?
There you go.
Yes, for the win.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to know well in advance so I can not talk for a few days, and not have anything planned for the next couple days after that, because I have a feeling that my voice is just going to die. It's just gonna be done.
I'm gonna obviously have to do somebody who's really Southern, but I don't know. Wrestling Days fan, for number 1,000, maybe I could be the podcast Eva Marie.
Oh,
and we can pretend I'm there, and then I'm not really there, and I can't wrestle, and
yeah.
How about that?
And you know what?
What?
You know what would be really, really cool?
What?
Is if we got you. Here's the thing. We get you to cut a promo as Eva Marie.
Mm-hmm.
It would instantly be better than any promo that Eva Marie has ever cut.
It would last about 3 seconds.
That's still better than. I'm teasing, kinda. I'm teasing. I am teasing.
I want to do the thing where she tries to introduce Jinder Mahal, and she's like, "You're not, this is Jinder Mahal." Like, oh my god.
Oh man. Okay. Oh man. Jesse Callan can apparently do a Vicky Guerrero.
Oh yes.
Oh man.
Excuse me. Yes. I love it.
Oh man. Okay. So we've got about 2 minutes left. Brandi, actually we don't have anything the rest of this week, which is probably not a bad thing. Being that I am beginning to pack. And all of that good stuff. So nothing the rest of this week, but we will be back Monday with a fresh episode of Abby's Window. And I'm really looking forward to what happens on SmackDown tomorrow night.
Me too.
So, and that honestly, SmackDown has been killing it lately. But Brandi, any final thoughts on Jimmy Hart before we sign off here?
I just strongly encourage you guys to go back and watch some of the things that we've talked about. Jimmy Hart did write a book. I have been unable to find it. I would think it would be one of the funniest reads that you could find in a wrestling book. I mean, there are some that are pretty funny, but I think his would just have to be amazing. I wish I could find it. Look it up, see what you guys can find. Um, and I just think he's one of these amazing over the top characters that you're never going to forget. You're never going to forget. I mean, how many times, does somebody my age or Joe or you, Jeff, remember him throwing that megaphone in the ring
Yeah.
to help one of his guys get the win?
Yeah.
I just think, like Sherry, he's another one that I don't know if we're going to see another one of those.
Yeah,
you may get something similar, but you're not going to get it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's only one Jimmy Hart,
There is
and
only one Jimmy Hart, and what an amazing life for a man
yeah,
to go from being kind of this teen idol in the 60s to being this iconic character in wrestling, to have a years and years long business relationship with one of the biggest wrestlers in wrestling, with Hogan, being able to be on television shows and make cameos in movies, and he's still huge in the wrestling convention scene as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's aside from the Legends stuff and the behind the scenes stuff that he still does with WWE. So
Yeah.
and he, again, guys, this man is 77 years old, and he's still kicking it.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Absolute legend. And if you guys don't know a lot about Jimmy Hart, go check him out on the WWE Network. Look him up on YouTube. Because the man, I mean, he truly is a living legend. And he's done so much for the business. His fingerprints are all over the business. So yeah, go check him out. But again, if you haven't done so already, folks, like and give us a comment on this video. Let us know what you thought of this episode. If you have not subscribed, please do so. Please subscribe to us here on YouTube. We are inching ever so closely to 900. And yeah, I think we're at like 876 right now, or 877. So we're getting close to 900. And then that final countdown will happen. Again, if you would like to take us on the go, we're on just about every single podcasting platform you can imagine. We're on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public. And just absolutely thank you guys for all of your support. Nell says, great episode, love all the knowledge. Thank you, Brandi, for all of your research. Thank you guys.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in and enjoying this show. And I mean, hopefully, and our goal with this is to maybe tell you something that you hadn't heard before, and maybe spark an interest where you go and look up some more information on the people we cover in these episodes. But Brandi, thank you. Guys, before we go, want to let you know that we may have some changes in scheduling for this show, but we will finalize all of those details and get that back out to you. We're gonna do a powwow and let you guys know what we come up with. But again, thank you for all the support. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. And enjoy SmackDown tomorrow night. Should be very good, and we're all looking forward to it. So, what do you say, Brandi? We'll do this again next week?
Absolutely, and we'll talk about the legendary Mr. Teddy Long. Holla, holla, player.
Yeah. Holla, holla.
Holla, holla.
Holla, holla. All right, players. We'll talk to y'all next time. And we'll put you in a one-on-one match against The Undertaker. All right, till next time, y'all. Have a good night. Talk to you next week.
Hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family. You don't know what hard times are, Daddy. Hard times are when country are out of work and got 4 or 5 kids and can't pay their wages, can't buy their food. Hard times are when the auto workers are out of work and they tell them go home. And hard times are when a man has worked at a job 30 years. 30 years. They give him a watch, kick him in the butt, and say, hey, a computer took your place, Daddy. That's hard time. That's hard time.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here in Nashville, Tennessee, pal, I'm the man.
But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
If you smell what the rock.
I am the game, JR.
Rest in